The Coffee and the Company Podcast Season 2.
Do it.
One, two.
Do you do a clap usually?
Yes, I always do a clap.
Let's do it, man.
It's called a sync clap.
Yeah, sing clap, man. I learned this from Jonathan.
It's called a sync clap, especially if you have video on.
Yep.
So a sync clap is always important.
Yeah. Man, welcome, man.
Thank you, man.
I'm glad you're here.
Glad I'm here too.
I'm glad you're here, man. I heard a lot of good stuff from you, from John, from YCS. That's how we got connected. Mm-hmm. That's how we had the gathering. Then he asked me to organize on the gathering. So he came over and brought everyone, which is very interesting. And I love all these gatherings so we can talk, know more people. I don't really enjoy large event gathering.
Right.
I don't really enjoy, not because I'm introvert or extrovert, whatever. But it's just that, dude, it's just like a butterfly, man. You're flying here and there. And in the end...
Yeah, you're just bouncing around. And then you only get to know people on the surface level because there are so many people.
So many, man. It's like everyone's just probably talk like 1 to 2 minutes. But you're trying to...
100% agree.
When you try to in-depth conversation more, like spend more 5 minutes, his eyes or her eyes is away already, man.
Yeah.
It's like, there's
so many
these people
things
I want
to
to talk to.
focus on, right?
Yeah, so I don't really enjoy the kind of stuff. But 7 or 5 to 15, it will be just nice.
Yeah, I mean the industry that we're in is already small enough to the point that you can get to know a lot of people, but there's only a handful of people that are willing to like collaborate or like be very outspoken about a certain things, for example.
Yeah. And also, I just organized a Jimny. I have a Jimny car.
Okay.
Suzuki. Also, they are the same. So we just organized a coffee session over here over the weekend.
Oh, fantastic.
And also, they're the same. Like, they're very ad hoc. All of them, I never met. All of them. But when I shoot a invitation individually, I'm so surprised. Like 80% or so, like 80% of them, like, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah.
Sure, they just show up then. It's really nice and to know more people, like-minded people. When's our next gathering, man?
We can plan one now. We can plan one by the end of the month, or mid or late next month.
Yeah, Kelvin, you're in a very unique field of occupation.
Definitely.
Correct me if I'm wrong, right?
It's so unique to the point that people don't understand what I actually do.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the longest time.
I think slowly most of people are getting to know what you're doing. Right now, if I mention about podcast, right, so far I've never seen anyone that don't know what's a podcast.
Yep.
Right now, yeah.
Yep.
Over the years, for the past 2 years. 9 years ago when my friend told me about a podcast, right, what the fuck is that, man?
Yeah.
iPod. iPod.
I've been in this industry since 2018.
Yeah.
Late 2017, early 2018. I've been in this field for a while now.
What were you doing before that? You were a barista or you were cafe manager?
I was managing a couple of cafes back in pre 2017 in Taman Tun, Grumpy Cyclist, and also a cafe called Thursday.
Yeah.
And then before that, I was running my own events company.
Okay, what sort of events?
We specializes in a lot of corporate conferences, but we specialize in supplying manpower.
I see. That's how you met Jonathan, is it?
No lah.
He's also like corporate events as well, the guy.
His family business is in corporate events, but I feel like the events he do are a lot bigger. Because what we used to do is we supply manpower. Okay. It's a lot easier because I was
event crew.
Event crews lah.
Yeah.
Event crews lah. Yeah. So just for example, like when we were doing the oil and gas events, for example, we had to supply up to like 500 personnels. You have your ushers, your security, and
there's
everyone
like something
else.
like KLCC OGA.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I see.
A lot of that last time.
So were you a employee at the time, or was that your own business?
I was running my own business.
Damn. How did you go involved in that?
I was like 21, 22, still in uni. Don't know what I'm doing also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then that's after you grad from
After I grad from uni, I was just bumming around because we sold the company off.
Okay.
And then I was like, I don't know what to do next. And then I was very into coffee then. So I kind of went into the F&B business just to learn about coffee, how to make coffee, you know, the difference between a flat white, a latte, a cappuccino that a lot of people still cannot answer today.
Yeah, even the baristas also can answer right now.
Yeah.
But it's okay. Yeah.
Damn good coffee, by the way.
Thanks, man.
Damn good
We roast our own beans as well. So we're still learning. And next week, I'm supposed to go for an examination for roasting.
Oh, wow.
Certified Pro
Okay.
by SCA. So, yeah. So hopefully I can come back and then I can conduct classes. Also, I need to sit for AST. So AST means Authorized SCA Trainer. So I have to pay another lump sum of money to sit for exam, and they will observe my presentations through Zoom and this and that. So
through Zoom.
yeah, because they're from UK.
Okay.
And usually they have like probably like 20 over applicants. So they will take turn this and their homeworks and this and that. So it's very hassle to become an AST, but it's worth it because I'm able to certify the credentials by SCA. So next month, I heard it's very difficult, as I know of, even for experienced people.
All the best to you.
So, but then very excited about that project, and I'm glad you say nice. We try right now. We've been roasting for like 5 months really. Yeah, micro roasting.
You know what's one of my biggest gripes when it comes to coffee? Because I'm okay. I'm just gonna put it out there. I'm a coffee addict. Okay,
Right, sure.
If I wake up in the morning and I don't have coffee, I'll probably just be very groggy or very, very grumpy.
What do you have in the morning? What's your routine?
Just hot black.
Yeah.
Just hot black.
Okay.
I
You have a machine at home or
no. I have
capsule or
I've already devolved. Right, to the point that in the morning, especially at home, back then I used to grind my own, right? And then I do a lot of pour overs. It took up too much time. Right now I just need to wake up, something instant, just to get the
you
kick.
did a cold brew?
No, Nescafe Gold, unfortunately. Right?
That works, man. Do you follow a recipe from the label or not?
Yes.
80 degrees Celsius?
I usually just take like an espresso shot.
Blend. Oh, okay.
Right. So it's just like one spoonful of Nescafe Gold, hot water, stir, then just take a shot.
The
of
concentrated one?
Yes.
Concentrated one.
Yes.
Is it hot boiling water?
I wouldn't say hot lah, like warm lah.
Warm we would do, man. Warm.
Yeah, warm.
I tried before. Actually, Nescafe, if you do it correctly, it's not as harsh.
You can't use boiling water because what ends up is you're just gonna burn it, and all you get is longkang water.
Yeah, very bitter,
Right?
man.
Yeah.
Harsh and bitter, man.
Going-
So that's not my. I mean, I have no bias in terms of coffee on individuals' preference. Although I'm a coffee trainer, people always get that I have this bias, right? I drink Nescafe, I'm not like whatever. Dude, let's say if you enjoy the coffee, it's a nice coffee.
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
Whatever it is, instant.
It's just like how
3-in-1.
people talk about beauty, right? Or like paintings, for example. It's always subjective.
Yeah, it's very subjective, man.
And when it comes to coffee, my personal preference, if I have a choice, I always prefer something along the lines of an Ethiopian bean, where it's like super fruity, super floral, very acidic as well. If you enjoy that cold, it's like you don't feel like you're having coffee. You just feel like you're having a very floral, fruity note of like longkang water, some people will call it, right? But yeah, that's my preference. Maybe you have something else again, right? Who am I to judge what you like?
No, to be honest, I still drink kopi O.
Like the OG kopitiam kopi O, right?
I still do. Whenever I do not have the opportunity to make my own coffee, I still do. If let's say I go outstation, I hate to carry all my stuff though. Like probably I'm talking about carrying my machine.
Sometimes it's a hassle. The machines, I don't know if the camera can see it, but have you actually hold a grinder, like an entire grinder? It's not light. And if you want to bring it out, right?
Yeah.
Bro, no thanks, man.
It's just not about the light as well, man. It's not about weight also. It's like, fuck this shit, man. So many things to carry, man.
Oh, for sure, man.
So I like to go light. Let's say I go outstation, like Balik Kampung. So I would, let's say I really have a long drive. There are two cafes I will get to. Coke Zero,
Okay.
number one. Or I can, if I can get the kopitiam, the kopio. With kopio ice would be great. So it's less bitter.
For me,
No,
like,
there's no sugar, so I don't take sugar. Kopio ice, croissant, something like that. Yeah.
for me, one of my biggest guilty pleasures is a very, very good cup of chumping.
Yeah.
Oh my god,
Wow,
man.
that's so sweet, man. Do you take sugar with that or condensed
I
milk?
usually just ask for like kurang manis.
Yeah.
But if you have champing O, alright, or like champing C, there's no flavor. You really don't get like the
Yeah,
bougie kopitiam
you need the
flavor.
condensed
You
milk,
need
man.
the condensed milk, right?
Yeah.
There are some things that you have to enjoy with sugar. That's why I call it a guilty pleasure. It's not something you have every day,
Yeah.
right? Or like Old Town white coffee 3-in-1 hazelnut flavor, right? That's also a guilty pleasure of mine, right? It's just sometimes I have terrible sweet tooth, and sometimes I just crave for that caffeine plus sugar with
Yeah.
that cake. I usually have that before I go for a run or like a cycle or go gym.
Pre-workout for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's very nice, and the reason why I don't drink sugar is not because of health.
Okay.
It's because of I don't like the aftertaste of the sugar. I don't mind eating cakes.
Okay,
I love cakes.
okay.
I love desserts and all pastries and stuff. I just don't really enjoy that after drinking the sugar stuff, right? Like for example, coffee with sugar or whatever, like Coca-Cola with sugar, Pepsi with sugar, the normal classic. I just don't like that it leaves my sugar on my
Okay.
the aftertaste on my tongue.
Fair enough. Yeah.
It's I just don't enjoy that. And also, I realized after I drink sugar drinks, right, man, I feel I just had 3 slices of cakes. It's very full to me. Maybe I've long time I don't really drink sugar stuff, but once I have once, right, oh man. Let's say I have a teh tarik, the classic, yeah? Man, it's so full, man. My stomach cannot take it anymore. I have 2 slices of cakes, I will not feel the same. Yeah, so that's why I don't really drink sugar stuff. But I drink tong sui.
Okay.
Red bean soup, all those,
Okay,
yes, I
okay,
enjoy
okay,
it,
okay.
but not a beverage. Those are considered different. Those are dessert, right? Yeah, but that's the thing. So how did you started this business from grad and then into an event management? How did you partner with someone at the time?
For which one? The event company?
Event
or-
company at the time.
The event company, no, I did not partner with anyone. I do have some friends helping me out.
Okay.
Right. It was just about the 4 of us. I got the contract, I got the business, and then they were just assisting me with getting people,
facilitate you.
managing the people that we hired on for events stuff. Because it's a very easy business to go into, especially when you are in university, because there are abundance of students.
Yeah.
Everyone is hungry for money.
Yeah.
Right. And usually the events are like, from a Thursday to a Sunday, usually weekend events. So everyone have actually spare time. Right. And because of that, because of the perks of being in uni back then, we could easily just hire 200, 300 people easily, right? And then managing them was a headache because they are uni students as well. There's no integrity sometimes.
I think like 200 people, no matter what age, is difficult.
Yeah.
No matter
right.
what age, man.
Yeah, we have to make sure that everyone is there. We have to make sure that everyone is on time. We have to make sure that they have a certain facade that they put on, because we are meeting international delegates. It was an oil and gas event, so you get a lot of white collar people, right?
Yeah.
You can't just chin chai or just like simply anyhow. So there was a lot of training beforehand, a lot of briefing to tell them what kind of paradigm and what kind of mindset to actually be into. But yeah, it was a very, very good time.
I see. Then what makes you wants to quit that industry and
It was tiring. It was very, very tiring.
how long did you last for that in that industry?
We did it for about four years.
4 years.
4 years.
Oh, damn.
Every year there was a minimum of 3 different events, all in KLCC. But we left because it was tiring lah.
Did you have clients keep calling you back? Can you help me out on this event?
Yes.
After
I mean, because it's an annual event, and for the amount of manpower that they're looking for, not a lot of people can actually supply.
Yeah, it's
right?
tough, man.
Yeah. So once the hardest one was the first event, because back then you don't have a network of people to like call, right? Or like a group chat where you can just blast out message to tell people it's like, hey, we have this event from here to here. This is the payment. This is what we're looking for, right? So the first one was the hardest, and then once we move on to like the second, third, fourth, and so on, it was a lot easier. It was just one message out, and then easily we can find like 200-300 people, no problem at all.
I see.
Yeah,
Those are the part-timers.
those are the part timers lah.
I see.
Yeah,
I see.
yeah.
So then you dropped that, and then you started your career in coffee industry. And how long does it?
I was in
you
F&B. I was in F&B for about 6 years.
Okay,
About a good 6 years. 5 years lah. 5 years.
5 years.
5 years of my life.
So
yeah.
I'm sure you enjoy it a lot.
Oh, I loved it. It was some of the best time. One of the reasons why I can speak Malay well is because of being in the F&B, right? A lot of my colleagues was Malay, and one of my best friends, his name is Daus. He was the one that actually helped me improve my Malay, I would say.
Oh, see.
Yeah.
That was that guy from Grumpy Cyclist?
No. Daus is from Thursdays last time.
I see.
Yeah, he used to be my supervisor and became good friends.
I see.
Yeah.
And what makes you transition from F&B into this medium?
I guess for podcasting itself, it's definitely more on a curiosity. Because back in 2018, 2017, I've already been listening to podcasts for a long time. A lot of American narrative storytelling podcasts, a lot of fiction podcasts. And one of the trigger factors is when I've shared this before, was when I was coming back from Qingming, right?
Yeah.
Qingming usually is all the way in Johor.
Okay.
And from KL,
Which town?
Johor Jaya.
Johor Jaya.
Johor
That's
Jaya.
JB lah.
Yeah, JB lah.
Yeah.
In JB itself. And everyone knows, right? From JB all the way to KL, it's easily like a 4-5 hours drive,
man.
especially when you have family in the car. You can't drive super fast, you have to take it slow. So let's just say 5 hours. How do you fill your time in 5 hours, right? And on the way back, I actually found like this podcast called the No Sleep Podcast, right?
No Sleep. N-O?
No Sleep.
Okay,
right?
what is it about then?
It's a fictional horror podcast.
Wow.
Right.
Dude, you love
I love
horror stories.
I
man.
love all things horror. Okay.
Let's go.
So
Alright, then.
let me be real with you, okay? I am a coward when it comes to horror, especially supernatural stuff. Right? I can't take it, I can't digest it, but I crave for it.
Okay.
Right? Knowing that I'm scared. So that's one. Anyways, I was coming up from JB, and then I found this podcast called the No Sleep Podcast, and each episode is about an hour and a half long.
Is a narrative story?
Narrative,
Yeah.
right? And each episode has like 3 to 4 different stories depending on the episode itself, right? And it's very, and the design, the VO, everything was designed so well to the point that it kind of sucks you into the story itself. And that's how I filled my time. 4 hours back to back. Episode 1, episode 2, episode 3. I was just binging it all like throughout. And then I was thinking, why can't we do that in Malaysia? Because let's not talk about Malaysia.
That is American.
American, right? US based. And I was thinking, like, not just Malaysia, but Southeast Asia in general is just filled with all this amazing lore, amazing stories, especially when it comes to like
Myth, right? Urban legends and stuff.
Our mythical urban legends. We're talking about things like the Pontianaks, for example, the Toyols, the Bunian people, and then we're so rich in lore, and that's just Malaysia itself,
Yeah.
And then you move to Thailand, and then you move to like Indonesia, and then you move to like Korea, Japan. Everyone has their own sets of like mythical, supernatural things. And I was like, why can't we start that? So the day after, I sent a message to a friend of mine, Jeff, and I was like, hey bro, let's try this thing out, right? Let's try finding Malaysian horror stories and make it into a narrative podcast. And that's what we did. first episode is still up. That's my very first episode that.
Well, you just mentioned that last month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned that last month
During
on,
the gathering,
on
right?
LinkedIn. Yeah, I mean in the gathering, I also posted it up on LinkedIn because I did an article piece with The Edge.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
For the podcasting industry. So if you go on SoundCloud and you find.
Is it in the
Surround
Spotify?
podcast. No. It's only on SoundCloud.
SoundCloud, yeah.
I did that purposefully because I don't want people to find it. But at the same time, it's like if you really want to find my work, that's where you find it.
Okay.
That's the first ever episode I've produced, edited, and designed.
Okay, SoundCloud. And what is the title of the podcast channel?
The Seram Podcast.
The Seram Podcast.
It's only one episode.
I heard it's very difficult for you to produce, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Producing is producing.
The sound.
It's hard.
sound
It was
effect
hard.
and
Yeah.
stuff.
It was very, very, very difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, can you explain to me what is your what do you see the time beside this? I'm sure right now there was probably 6 years ago, right? You were saying
that was about 6 years ago.
Yeah, but then right now you produce the first episode. What's your main core business that you see potential that you venture into?
I saw a hole in the void and I wanted to fill it. Because when it comes to Malaysians, I believe a lot of Malaysians really enjoy good storytelling. And that was my passion the whole time, right? Just want to tell good stories. And the lowest hanging fruit back then, I just want to test it out, right? Test how to produce a podcast. And horror stories are definitely one that was very, very easy. We found a couple of stories on Reddit on Our Malaysia, and then it was locally written horror stories. And we just did not ask for permission. We took their story, we did a voiceover, and then we just edited it.
Did it works?
It did.
Anyone come to you?
No, we went to one of the authors to tell him, hey, I'm sorry I took your story, but this is what I did with it. I let him listen to the whole thing. He really enjoyed it. And then we met up for drinks. And then he was like, I loved the story.
You know what? All these horror stories, right? It reminds me of the 90s. 988, the radio?
Chupapa,
right?
Chupapa, okay.
Yeah, it evolves into 988. You know what is... I mean, I might be wrong from my brain, right? Before 988, right? You know what was it?
No.
Laitek Fusing. Have you heard about it?
No, I don't think so.
It's a radio subscription.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
in the 90s. So,
This is in Malaysia.
Malaysia.
Okay.
Chinese medium.
Okay.
Paid subscription, monthly fee.
Interesting.
They come in store for you. It's a wooden box. You can go Google it. It's a wooden box. So it runs, if not mistaken, 70s until the mid 90s. It has a lot of shows, not just radio shows, not just the normal requesting songs, all this. It has a lot of stories. Whatever you mentioned just now. Horror stories at night.
Okay.
Love story in the afternoon. And some drama stories in the probably some prime time.
Right.
But the horror stories always at night. 9:30, 10 p.m.
And it's all in Mandarin.
It's all in Cantonese or Mandarin.
Okay.
So it's talk about all the urban legends of the locals, especially Malaysian. Those are not imported Hong Kong stories,
It's like Malaysian
Chinese stories.
I've never heard of that before.
They are produced locally, they're voice acting locally. A lot of sound effects, squeaking, walking on the floors, all these are from the wooden box radio. So it's a wooden box radio. Before there is Astro. So the only paid subscription is Laitek Fusing. The full name is Laitek Fusing. I'm not really sure what is the registered radio station name. But the brand is called Laitek Fusing. Very interesting. Because why? My neighbor always turn it on very loud so we all can enjoy.
When you were younger lah.
When I was probably like 7 or 8.
Oh wow.
So it was the end of prime time really.
Okay.
It was end of prime time, right? So and then sooner or later there's this famous radio DJ from Jiu Papa 988 was named Chan Feng.
Okay.
Chan Feng is from
Okay.
there, man.
Okay.
Yeah, Transforms was from there, and ever since they turned into 988, he's still there. So yeah, he was a junior, but by the time, and then it was in the transformation into 988. Yeah, yeah, it's very interesting. So
I have to do a bit of homework on that.
you need to do the
Yeah,
homework, man.
right.
That was
That is fascinating. I say it's fascinating because I'm in the midst of bringing one of my older podcasts back. It's called Podcast. It used to be called Podcast Sessions Malaysia or PSMY, but now I'm transitioning it into a show just called Podcast Sessions, and it's a show that talks to content creators and creatives in general, right? Not just podcasters, but like podcasters, content creators, YouTubers, etc., to understand their process, their creative process behind each of the pieces that they create, right? So that is definitely something that I want to talk about.
Yeah, it is very interesting. So whatever you say just now, it really nostalgically remind me of my childhood, which is like diffusing. I believe that someone at my age, 30s, 40s, 50s, I'm sure they heard of it. Most of my friends heard of it, even younger than me. Yeah, so that is something you can look into it.
Okay.
Let's come back to your business, right? You were saying that. So you see some potential in that, yeah. But what is the dollar and cents potential in that?
When it comes to dollar and cents,
yeah.
Okay, at that time when it comes to dollar and cents, we didn't think much about it. For me, it was just I was still doing my F&B, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to explore something new, right? I wanted to explore something new. So before I even went to the dollar and cents train of thought, for example, I needed to understand how it works. Because it was back then when we first started, there was only literally a handful of podcasters. We're talking about the early Malaysian, right? Geeks in Malaysia, McYap and Fries. And other than that, I can't name any others already, right? Perhaps the Matcha Man, for example, but the Matcha Man came after. But back then, there was no podcast in Malaysia, right? The only two OGs that I can name is McYap and Fries by Gavin Yap and Ian McNally, and also Geeks in Malaysia by Nick Dorian and the rest. Other than that, no one else was doing podcasts in Malaysia. That's how OG, it was. So when it comes to dollar and cents, we just didn't think much about it because it was just purely a passion project.
So what was your first recording? What was it? What kind of theme or topic?
The horror podcast called the Seram Podcast.
Okay.
We wanted to rent a studio because there was no place we could find that had like a treated room or a clean room without any interference whatsoever. So my co-host back then, his name is Jeff Kasim, and Jeff is a good friend of mine. His cousin ran a music recording studio. So we just told him, it's like, hey man, we just wanted to try this new project. We were looking for a recording studio because it's treated and it's nice. Can we use your space for about half an hour to an hour? He said yes. We went there, brought my first mic, which was like a SM80, which is a very cheap condenser Chinese mic, right? Went there, we record, and then it took us about 2 hours to actually record the entire thing. And I brought it back. I started editing it, playing with sound design, playing with sound effects, and then learning how to mix and master, audio for the first time. So the entire thing took me about 2 weeks to properly understand.
So was that easy for you to learn? Were there any YouTube videos, tutorial videos for you to learn?
There was, thankfully there was already tutorial videos on YouTube to teach me how to edit. I believe I used Audacity, right? The free software, and then that was the first audio software that I ever touched in my life. And then I was like, oh man, this is so complicated. What am I looking at? What's all this drop down menu? And then slowly I just pick up, how to normalize, how to work on the audio reduction, and then how to mix, how to master.
That is just audio only, right? Your first project. There's no video, right?
No. No.
Even right now, do you do audio and video?
Right now, we purely do video.
All right.
Right now, we have transitioned to video because, like it or not, it's either you adapt or you die. Because how I explain to people is when you create content, you are creating it for the sake of people to find you, for the sake of people to enjoy. But right now, if you're not on, Instagram Reels, if you're not on YouTube Shorts, you're not on Facebook Shorts, if people use that, or even TikTok, for example, no one's going to find you. You can make the greatest piece of content out there, but if people don't know who you are and people can't find you,
Cannot see.
what's the point?
Yeah.
Right? So I told my team, we have to invest in a couple of cameras. And right now, everything that we do is video first, but with audio always in mind.
I see.
Which is quite unfortunate, to be very honest with you, because when we talk about podcasting, right, the OG definition of podcasting is
Audio only, right?
audio only,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But that's where we are.
Yeah. So then how do you bring revenue in? Who's your first client, or what's your first
Are you
deal that you have?
Are you talking about our very early days?
Yeah, very early days.
Our early days, we were running on sponsorship and advertisers.
Okay. How does that work?
We tell them what we do. We tell them we have advertisement inventory slots for them. Usually it's the pre-roll, the mid-roll, and the post-roll. And we tell them how much it is, right? Then they pay us a certain amount, and then we just slot it in. We either help them record, or they have like a pre-recorded ad that is like 30 seconds to like 60 seconds long. And we just bake it into the audio itself. It's perpetual.
I see.
Yeah.
What was do you have any target industry for like mic, any audio equipment, or
Are you talking about right now or back then?
No, back then.
Back then? No.
Anyone?
None of us. Okay, let me put it this way, right?
Was it
None of
difficult?
us- It
Very
was difficult.
difficult,
It was
yeah.
difficult. Then it was when I started in the podcasting industry. No one knew what a podcast was, right? So the education has always been high. We have to explain to people again and again and again and again, to the point that it became a mantra of like, hey bro, what's a podcast? Oh, you mean broadcast? A free one? Hey, where to download? Hey, where to listen? What FM? Right? I was like, see, like those are the usual questions that we gotten. So every time we have to re-educate people, again and again, just to help them understand what a podcast is.
Including your clients, right?
Yeah, definitely, right? Because how I explained it back then, and I still do now, is that if you're looking for clients, if you're looking for sponsors and advertisers, it is hard to convince people to put money into your show if they don't even know what a podcast is.
Yeah, man.
Right?
Agree.
So the paradigm shift there, or like the mindset there that we had to tell them is like, think of a YouTube channel, right? We have two parts. One is the audio part itself. The other one is just the video and audio part, right? This is how much you need to put in for your investment to join as a sponsor or an advertiser, right? And they're like, what's your ROI? How much can I make back from here? How many audience you have per episode? How many eyes are looking, right? So it's a lot of convincing and a lot of education to tell them that, if it's on, it's going to be perpetual. People can tune in 5 years down the line and they can still hear your ad. It's this much because this much work have to go in. And yeah. It becomes a mantra.
So you are the salesman at the time?
Yeah.
Cold calling and stuff? DM?
I still am.
You still am?
I still am, yeah. I like to use the term CEO. I'm the CEO of Renegade Radio and not chief executive, I'm the cover everything officer.
All right.
Right? So it's like pao ka liao, really, really pao ka liao.
How many, what's your team headcount like right now?
Right now, our team is 6 men strong, but altogether we have about 15 men strong team here.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So
we have producers, we have editors, we have script writers, and then we have some part-timers as well, just to help us on project basis things. Yeah.
So what is your core right now? I believe Saram podcast is more like a
passion.
Yeah,
purely passion.
It's a test pilot project. It's more on a hobby side. And what is your core product that will?
So The company is called Renegade Radio. That
Yeah.
is the parent company.
Yeah.
That is the umbrella network where we actually bring in, where we actually create our own in-house shows and we park it under the network, or we adopt shows from other people into the network itself. For example, let's just say you, Dennis, and this podcast, right? You are doing this all by yourself now. The network will come in and ask, how can the network help you? Usually it's from monetize. It's always monetization. And then there is the post-production part of it, right? And then, okay, we can help you with those two.
Yeah.
All you have to pay us is either profit sharing or a monthly price where we do all the edits for you at a very, very discounted rate. You
Alright.
you'll be part of the network, and then we will help you in marketing, we will help you in sponsorship, we will help you in finding the matching you with the right sponsors to your show itself, right? So that's what the network do. We create our own show and we adopt and also incubate other people's show. The other side of the business that we don't share much is called Renegade Plus. And what Renegade Plus is, we are a creative agency that just happens to specialize in podcasting, right? We have been in this industry long enough to be able to understand what I call the 5 P's of podcasting, or from ideas to earbuds. 5 P's of podcasting consists of planning, production, post-production, promotion, and also publishing, right? That's the 5 things you do in every podcast. And we will just guide our clients through each and every step. It's either we act as a normal creative agency that we pauka liao for them, or we just act as a satellite team doing a lot of post-production for the clients.
So the clients will come to you. I don't know how to produce the podcast. I have this, whatever they want to talk about. So they will engage you and your service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to call myself the and then what guy, right? Especially when it comes to podcasting. Let's just say, for example, you, Dennis, have this amazing idea that you want to start a podcast, right? And this podcast to you is like bulletproof, is foolproof, right? Okay, great. And then what? How do you plan a podcast, right? How do you script your intros? How do you script your outros? What kind of energy do you need,
Yeah.
right? Okay, let's just say you have that sorted as well. Now you go into production. What kind of equipments do you need?
Yeah, man.
Right? How do you find the right space? How do you find the right mic? How do you find the right camera, for example? Right? Okay, let's just say you get that sorted also. Okay, cool. And then what? You go for recording, and then you need to do your editing. All right? What kind of software do you need to edit? Right? How do you mix and master? You know, how do you normalize? How do you noise reduce? Yeah, that's why I like to call myself the and then what guy, because each step of the process, I've already been through, me and my team have already been through the obstacle of like, okay, we know what to do, we know what to not do, right? We offer our clients a very simple solution. You handle all the fun parts, right? Inviting your guests lah, you know, coming up with fun ideas for your podcast episode lah. Let us do the hard work for you.
Post-production.
Let us do the post-production, you know. Let us plan an entire season for you. Let us help you with the marketing part. And that's where we come in. We're the and then what people. Yeah.
That's really cool, man. How do you explain this to your friends and what you're doing?
No,
How do you
like to people who are not familiar with the industry, I usually just say that on the creative side, it's just we run a creative agency that just specializes in podcasting.
I see.
Right?
I see.
Yeah.
So do you do cold calling to all the key accounts and stuff like that?
I don't do much of the cold calling. I usually just meet up with people that are already familiar with what I do, or people will just come knocking to my door. Cold calling.
You are referred by the previous clients.
Usually it's a lot of word of mouth on our end, right? The cold calling part is what my partner does. My partner Afiq Kamarudin and his team would source out clients that are either in Malaysia or Australia or Singapore, for example, and then we just reach out to them.
I see.
Yeah.
That's very, very special industry you're in.
It is. It until today I would still say it's a very niche industry, because if you look at the landscape itself, right, there's not many companies out there. Like,
I never know anyone is doing this, to be honest.
yeah. Like
Yeah.
my direct competitors would immediately be like BFM, Astro, Media,
Wow, yeah.
Prima, for example. But if you're talking about the podcast level, you know, then I wouldn't say competitors. Like I hate the word competitors. We're not competing.
Other players.
Other players are like KJ, for example, or the Ming brothers, for
Wow.
example.
KJ is a big
He is a
big
huge
ass
name.
crew, man.
Huge name, right?
Yeah, but I saw some behind the scene like from IG story, right? Man, is this behind the camera is like probably like 12 people, 4 or 5 laptops and stuff.
Yep.
That
Yep.
is remind me of what Media Prima
Yeah, I mean, like
in a smaller scale.
if you look at big scale podcasts, for example, take KJ for example, you need a lot of people to actually run a show like that, because it's yes fine, on the surface level it's called a podcast,
Yeah.
but if you look at it, it's a full on production. The high level host himself, right? Just the 2 hosts that is on there with the high level guests that they bring in.
Yeah.
You can't have like a
Even
like
the
a
Prince of
motley,
Johor, man.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
You can't have like a motley crew of like people that you just pick on. Those are definitely people that he has worked with and have trust on, that he bring on to make sure that everything runs smoothly. Because the research, the amount of research, the amount of cameras, light, and everything that goes behind the scenes that people don't see.
Yeah,
Right.
it's just too high risk to mess up, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
especially someone like Prince of Johor.
Yeah.
Yeah, some VIP guests
Yeah.
coming over. I
The-
forgot to press the button.
Yeah,
dude.
right. What, like, how, right? You can't have amateurs running a show like that. Like, that's why his crew is a lot bigger, I would assume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you see the potential of podcasts in Malaysia or overall? Do you see optimistic?
That is a very hard question to
Yeah.
answer, because if you were to ask me, yes, I'm very biased to the point that it's optimistic. And I've been saying this for 6 years now.
Yeah.
From people not knowing what a podcast is, to all the auntie uncles out there knowing, oh, 你做 podcast ah, oh, you do podcast on ah, oh wow, okay. So you can see a huge shift in people understanding, what content creation is. And it's funny because podcasting back then is audio only, pure audio only, and it really, really test and play around with your creativity. How well can you deliver a story? How well can you deliver a certain message, right? How well can you add sound design and sound effects to actually make it more captivating? But then now with like the new resurgence of like podcasts with audio, for example, right? It's a hybrid between, you can even call it like a hybrid or like a bastardization of YouTube plus podcasts, right? Because right now, if you go out to the masses and you ask people, hey bro, do you know what a podcast is? Oh, the one with a couple of hosts sitting down with
Talking in front of
cameras,
mics.
yeah, in front of mics, right? That's like the basic criteria now to start a podcast. You need cameras.
Yeah.
You need mics, you need headphones, and then you need a very pretty aesthetic space, and then that's your podcast scene. But if you think about it, that's basically just any other YouTube shows out there, right? So how do you define a podcast and how do you define a YouTube talk show, right? You can't. It's already
They're really
lines
mixed together, man.
Yeah,
Really mixed together, right?
The lines has been blurred already, and it's either you accept it or you just let it go.
Yeah. So, what do you see your Seram podcast in the very near future? What is your
That's a very
where is
interesting
your
question.
whole objective? I believe that's okay, pure passion project. But what is your end goal? What you're
Like
sticking to?
if you're talking about Suram podcast, I'm just gonna tease you a bit here. We have a true crime podcast being developed. It's a case study of 6 episodes on on some of the worst Southeast Asian true crime stories out there.
Okay.
Right, I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's coming out in October.
Alright.
It's coming out.
What's the name of that?
That one's
channel?
called Chasing Shadows.
Chasing Shadows.
It's not published yet. It's
SoundCloud?
not. It's not out yet. No.
Will it be
That-
Spotify?
that
or?
will be on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts on, right?
Obviously, there's audio only, right?
Yeah, no. That's video as well. That's video as well. But I would always suggest you to listen to the audio only because we put intensive detail to the audio part just to make it sound very captivating. That's Chasing Shadows. But when you ask me about Seram podcast, it's always like a very heartfelt question because that's that always felt like my baby, something that I started off with. I want to find the right team to actually run something like that. Because I would say my strength lies in production and creating a very interesting sound design just to pull people in. My weakness comes in writing.
I see.
I can't write. I hate writing.
So right now, what's your role in the Seram podcast? Are you
No, Seram
narrating?
podcast is dead. Seram
Alright.
podcast is dead.
Okay.
So it has been dead for a good 5 years now.
Okay.
But I definitely want to bring it back. I want to bring it back, and I want to find the right people for it.
So with the first episode, were you the one who narrated?
No, Jeff is the one
I see.
narrating it because he has a very beautiful
What
voice.
about chasing shadows?
Chasing Shadows? I'm only the producer for it.
I see.
Right?
You
I'm only the
have
producer for it. I have
voice act. Yeah, someone who
yes,
voice acting.
Yes, Ashley is the one voice. Ashley is the voice behind it, and then my producer Rex is my co-producer for the show itself.
Okay. Let me guess. Is Mona Fendi in it?
No, surprisingly no. Surprisingly no. Mona Fendi is not part of
Why,
the
man?
conversation there because there are more interesting stories that people don't know about in Malaysia. Yeah, Mona Fendi. Everyone knows Mona Fendi,
Yeah,
Right.
but in your perspective, might be very interesting, right?
but the facts are always the same. The facts are there. The facts are always the same. We established this show to highlight some of the more gorier story. Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
That's pretty good. So you're talking about you're about to revive Seram podcast, right?
Not anytime soon. Not anytime soon. I need to find the right people for it.
What
I
about
definitely
your
need the right.
chasing shadows? What is your end goal of it?
Chasing Shadows is going to be a case study of 4 to 6 episodes, depending on how much we.
Those are the
able-
real crimes,
Yes,
right?
yes, those are non-fiction. It's real stuff that we kind of make a whole narrative true crime show behind it, lah. My end goal for that is to use the case study to find monetization, right? To find a grant or a sponsor to actually bring us on a season by season basis, right? Because there are a lot of cases just through our research itself that we want to cover.
Okay. Also, I got to know you from Jonathan and
Yamcha Boys.
Yamcha Boys, yeah, our Yamcha session.
Yeah.
And the reason why he mentioned your name during the podcast is because first of all, you're very experienced in this industry, and also he was talking about he was invited. They got invited by the Renegade Lab.
Renegade Labs, our labs, yeah.
Obviously, it still belongs to
Yep.
your brands, and you guys were organizing an event about the independent podcasters,
Yep.
and then giving share and thoughts. How do you get that idea comes to your mind?
We always, it has been a long time coming. Our lab started pre-pandemic because, again, back then there was only a handful of podcasters. And when we created the first ever R Labs, it was made for people who are interested. Excuse me. It was made for people who are interested to starting their very own podcast. Because back then it was just me, Norman, and a couple of friends that are in the space. So we also got to find out later on that there are a lot of people who are super interested in starting their very own podcast. So we created the first event just to give people like a 101 session.
Which year was it?
I want to say
18?
2019,
19?
2018. I can't remember, but it was definitely before the pandemic. I mean,
okay.
I can search for it, but then not right now. But it was pre-pandemic, right? That was the first ever. And we were just expecting 10, 15 people. But in the end, it was about 30 plus people that actually came for it. And then it was quite a eye-opening experience for me, because I was like, oh wow, there's so many people who knows what the medium is, and there's so many people who are actually interested in the idea of podcasting back then.
How did they get to know there's such event?
We have a Facebook group called Malaysia's Podcast MPC, right? Malaysian Podcasters Community. And then just through the Facebook page, we started sharing to people, telling people who we are, what we do, and what is this page for. And then our social media had some sort of followers back then as well. So people were just finding us there.
Okay.
All right. And then there's also word of mouth lah.
So basically the agenda of the R Lab event is to promote the podcast.
The podcasting
Culture.
space. Yes.
Yeah.
The podcasting space and culture, yes.
Okay. How many times have you conducted such event?
About 4 times now.
4 times.
About 4 times
The
now.
last round was
The
this
last
year.
round was last year.
Last year.
The last round was last year. We are. I don't even know if I should talk about this on the show, but we are planning something for late January next year.
Does nothing happens this year?
Not this year. Not this year, because there are some things we have to focus on. So we rather just make something a bit bigger than what we usually do next year.
Okay. Okay. How big are we talking about? Like hundreds of
A 2-day
audience?
event.
Okay.
A 2-day back-to-back event. Audience is definitely going to be more than 100 lah, hopefully.
Did you look for sponsors
Yes, we did.
for the previous events?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's more towards location sponsors lah.
Location
I would
sponsor.
say, comparing our labs to like the KL Podfest, for example, we are peanuts. We are small because the idea for our labs has always been a networking and educational platform where we can talk and share with independent creators. You know, people who like you started off as your own with no support, no tongkat whatsoever.
No, nothing.
right?
Man. Yeah.
And just share your experience, because that's what the Yamcha boys did. They started with a passion, the 3 of them, and then look at where they are now. So I believe Jonathan, Andrew, and Pogi came to our labs, and I asked them to share one story, which is how they started from nothing to be able to interview Tun M on their podcast, because that's an achievement. Not many podcasts in Malaysia today can say that, oh, we had Tun M as a guest, right? So that was a very fantastic story that they shared, and people really loved that session.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
So the next event will be probably like January next
I would
year.
say Q1 next year lah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool, man. Just let me know if, let's say, that,
Well,
that really happens, man. I'm sure I'll
don't
be there.
worry. You will definitely be the first few to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what is the next big project for Renegade Radio?
For now,
What is your direction for that?
for Renegade Radio itself, is definitely bringing on more independent podcasters for us to incubate and partner up with. Right, that's for Renegade Radio. My goal is to reach 25 podcasts under the network that we can be close to, that we can support, that we can help out with as well.
And what is your most memorable client through your career?
That is a fantastic question.
I heard you share this in the group before.
You can say you have some clients from the banking industry,
yeah.
right? But I cannot say the name. I
Alright,
cannot
sorry,
say
man.
the name.
So I cut it off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
appreciate it.
So what is your most memorable clients?
Memorable as good or bad?
Both.
All right, I would say let us go with the good one first, lah. Two Book Nerds Talking is the most memorable one. They are my first ever clients. First ever clients
that support
we
you.
have, that supported us. They are a bookish podcast that talks about all things book review, author interviews, book recommendation, and they're doing a lot of interviews as well, not only with notable Malaysian authors but also international authors. Don't ask me to name the names, because I'm terrible with names. Okay, but there are a lot of international ones. They have been with us since pre-pandemic as well, and they have been supporting us as long as we have existed. And most recently, we just wrapped up the 2nd year for the International Women's Library in collaboration with ESOP Australia. And yeah, it's a beautiful event, beautiful podcast, and I'm really...
You're talking about these clients, they don't set up their own studio. They
No,
just
no.
come to you.
They just come
They
in.
do their content.
Yeah.
The rest left to you.
Like I asked you, okay, if I ask you a question, Dennis, how much did it cost you for everything here? I'm
Shit,
talking
man.
about
Shitload, man.
cameras, I'm talking about the light, I'm talking about the Shure mics, I'm talking about your Zoom H7 H6,
H6, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I'm talking about the cables. I'm talking about the mic stand. How much did everything here cost? you?
Shitload of money, man.
Right.
There are a lot of things that you don't see here.
Right.
The rubbish that I bought wrongly.
Right. All that. I call it obstacles, lah. Things
Yeah.
that you invested in just to realize that, oh shit, this is actually shit.
Yeah,
Right,
experience.
yeah, right.
Experience, yeah.
Can I safely say you spend upwards of 10K? 15?
With my laptop for post production, about that.
About 10, 15,
Yeah, 10,
right?
yeah.
Right?
The room is not even treated.
Yeah, right. and the room is your actual
classroom, yeah.
9 to 5 space
Yeah.
that you use for your own personal work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So let's factor all of this in. Okay? Put yourself as someone who just want to test out the waters in podcasting, that you have this great idea, you want to start a podcast, or let's just say, for example, you're a student, you're a fresh grad,
Yeah.
or you just got your first job, you don't have much cash. Not a lot of people can afford, equipments like this, a space
Yeah.
like this. That's where we come in.
Agree.
That's where we come in, because I hate to think of the idea where a great podcast goes to die because they couldn't afford the right equipments, or they couldn't afford the right cameras. It's them sayang lah, right? Why let a great idea die just because you can't afford it? And that's where we usually come in,
Let's see.
because I'll interview them, I will talk to them, I will just understand the mission and vision of the entire thing. What's their end goal? And if we believe it strong enough, we'll be like, join the network. Let's see how it goes. Right?
That's cool. Now, Thomas Yap, you know Thomas Yap, the car enthusiast?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
He came to our podcast as well, just through DM. I don't know him personally.
I saw the episode.
Yeah. And also he has this
Damn good
KL...
coffee, by the way.
Thank you. KL podcast studio. He
Yep.
told me about that.
Yep,
It just ran the space,
one
yeah.
with the red color
Yes.
curtains, two
Yeah.
mic,
Yeah.
the standard setup.
Standard setup, right? So, what do you think about? Because it's come out like this kind of another player similar like yours.
Fantastic initiation.
Yeah.
It creates a very low barrier of entry for people to test out podcasting ideas. Right? You pay a certain fee. If I'm not mistaken, it's about like 50 ringgit to 150 per hour for you to rent the studio and the equipment itself, and then you just record, and then they will give you the files,
yeah.
and then you edit it yourself.
Yeah, optional
right?
for post production, right?
I believe KL Podcast Studio does post production services, but in a separate fee as well,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Great initiation. I loved it. I wish there's more in Malaysia, for things like this, because again, it's not cheap to invest in all these things, because on our end in RR itself, I think I've more than 50K on equipment itself, and this,
the treated room as well.
and the treated room as well. Yeah, I would love to have you in the studio, but just let me team the podcast sessions planning.
Yeah.
I definitely want you to be a part of that.
Sure, man. Sure.
But yeah, right. Would you pay 50K, to invest in treated room and everything and good equipments, versus 150 per episode, right? I would go for the 150. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's you can test the water.
Yeah,
you
because
just try
let's
out.
just say, for example, right, you test the waters for like 10 episodes, and at episode 8, 9, 10, you're already doing well. You got thousands of followers, you got thousands of views. Then you can justify, okay, let me put 10K into a good audio interface, into a good mic, and then I can have my own space, because I already know I already know I have the followers. I already know that I have the audiences. I already know per episode I'm getting X amount of views.
Yeah.
So if I invest in this equipment and my own space, it's justifiable, versus you just having an idea, you don't know where it's gonna go, you don't know if you just enjoy it, and then what if you invest all this and then it's like, podcasting is not for me.
I wish I know this, man.
Right?
Information before I start this
Yeah,
shit.
yeah. So those are the obstacles that me and my team had to go through in the early days when we started podcasting.
Yeah.
Because
Because I did not know such service before.
Yeah.
Prior that I started this podcast.
that's
Along
why-
the way, because I invited Thomas, then told me, okay, this podcast studio. What the hell is that?
It's in
Damn, there's
it's
such
in
service.
Sri Dhammasara, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Right. And the barrier of entry is very, very low.
Very
because
low.
I feel like 150. Let's just say 150. Like, I'm not sure about the price. Don't quote me on it. But if you tell me about 150 for an hour, I would say it's so worth it.
Yeah.
It's so worth it.
Rather than
Right.
spend all this and a lot of technical issues and stuff.
Yeah, you got to understand.
Huge amount, man.
Yeah, you got to understand. Your bloody gains and everything. It's like, oh my god, I have to make sure the gains are all equal and everything. It's
Yeah.
like, oh my god, no thanks, man.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially the room, man. The room play a
Yeah.
very significant
It
role.
does. Like, yeah, I'm just gonna try something which might annoy you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can hear the echo.
Yeah, echo.
You can hear the echo, right? So it's not the funnest thing to actually do R&D on, because there are a lot of things that actually factor into things like high ceilings,
Yeah.
things like naked walls, things like
Solid surface.
solid surface, like
Yeah.
this, for example.
Yeah.
Like this, for example. I'm sorry, audiences out there,
Yeah.
right? All these things that you have to factor in. And if you're new and you have no idea, these are things that you will never think about. It's like, oh my god, I have a mic arm. Okay, does your mic arm come with a shock protector or like a shock mount? What's a shock mount? Does your mic come with like a dead cat, for example?
Yeah.
Is it a spring or hydraulic? And yeah, it's all the small things that kind of make up all the obstacles that we face. Yeah.
Do you have a dream setup?
Oh my god, that's such a fantastic question. Yes.
First,
yes.
tell us, like, what is the cost of a dream setup
Okay,
first?
I
in
was
lump sum?
about to go there. Before I tell you my dream setup, I'm going to tell you the cost of my dream is 120,000.
Damn.
120,000. Mainly because the dream setup is built inside a floating studio. Do you know what a floating studio is?
I have no idea what's that.
Okay, so floating studio is what a lot of radio station uses, right? We're talking about the people from Astro, Media Prima, and also BFM. They all have floating studios, and a floating studio is a stand-alone studio
Cubicle.
that is built in like a space like this.
Okay.
It's called floating because it's built upon layers of different materials, right? Including a vacuum sealed door. So when you're inside and there's a fire going on outside and people
You cannot
scream,
hear it.
You cannot hear anything. It's the definition of a treated room. If
Damn.
there are someone drilling downstairs,
You cannot hear
you
it.
cannot hear it also because it's floated with a lot of sound
Proofing.
contents. Yeah, a lot of sound proofing. If I'm
Materials.
not mistaken, it was 11 to 12 layers within the
Soundproofing
floating
materials.
Yes. So we're talking about a soundproof box that you're in, right? So there's no distractions whatsoever. That one itself is it's
That's
already
also like for those vocal recording as well, right?
Yes. It's basically a soundproof room, lah, right?
Mm.
You just go in and that is your world, right? Nothing else matters. That's the floating studio. But we do have plans for a studio of our own where we can have a very modular setup for both audio and video recordings. So it's about 120k, about that. Yeah.
So the most expensive of the cost will be the build up.
The build up,
floating build-up, yeah.
definitely, right?
You would say 120,000, probably like 80,000 of the cost of 120k.
About that. It really depends because I want to have one floating studio at least. A space within the recording studio or the creative studio where we know regardless what happens, we have a safe space to do any recording for sorts without any distractions whatsoever. The idea for the RRHQ has always been 2 audio recording studio and 2 modular video studio. The audio studio is very similar to KL Podcast, KL Podcast
Studio.
space itself, right? It's a very simple setup: a round table, couple of mics, and nice aesthetic
with
background.
foam on the wall.
Yeah, right. All the rooms would be treated. So those are the audio rooms, and then the video room is something along the size of this space. I call it modular because I want to be able to change the background constantly. Yeah, that's the idea behind that.
For different hosts and different shows.
For different shows lah. Yeah, correct lah. Like if you have a video game show, then you can put on more
Neon lights.
Yeah, right. Neon lights or like gamey aesthetic. If you have like a bookish show, for example, you can make it look like a library or like a very indie bookstore, for example. Things that you can constantly change to the point that people don't know that they're in the same studio.
I see.
Because we both know whatever they see, they're only seeing what we're allowing them to see.
Yes.
Right. It's only like this frame here or like your side here, right? And people don't know what's this side. They don't know what's behind.
Yeah.
So it's all how you curate the frame itself, and that's why I want to create modular studios.
That costs like including the 120K
No, probably not.
extra.
Yeah, that's extra, right? Let's not even start with the technical equipment.
Yeah, like the technical mics
Right.
and stuff. You know,
Yeah.
the
I mean,
mixers.
that's where the sponsorship comes in now. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Who's your dream sponsor then?
Road
Road.
Road.
Australian.
Road Australia. Yeah, they are not the biggest fan for sponsoring people.
Oh man.
They are not the biggest fan unless they're doing more educational stuff. But in terms of sponsorship, you either have to make a name for yourself or you jangan harap lah.
Why Road?
Because Road has
Why
been
not Sure?
Road has been with me since day one. You know,
Okay.
my entire studio is using the Rode Pod mic. We're
Pod mic,
using the Rodecaster Pro, and so far it has not failed me whatsoever. I'm very
Reliable.
happy. It's reliable.
Those
And
are not sponsored, right?
those are not sponsors.
Those are
I'm not being
from your
sponsored.
pocket,
Yeah,
right?
I'm not being paid to say this, right? It's because I'm very, very happy. And to me personally, I feel like, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I don't believe in paying so much for a mic, right? Unless you are a very high level podcaster or like content creator like Joe Rogan, for example, like KJ, for example. Be in your own means with the equipments that you have, because if you want to use a mic like this, you have to be in a super treated room. There's a lot of factors that have to come in. In this case, yes, expensive equals to good, but expensive in this case is not just the mic expensive, but the entire setup you have must be expensive. So for the level that I'm in right now, I feel like the Rodecaster is the most versatile equipment that we are using in the current space that we're occupying.
I think a lot of independent podcasters also using Rodecasters Pro.
Yeah, because
and
it's
Pod mic.
it's about one Rode Pod mic is like what 500 ringgit.
Yeah, about that. Sometimes I found like 450.
Yeah, right.
Non-USB one.
Yeah.
XLR. Yeah.
Yeah, like the XLR one. So 500 for like a long-term studio space where I have different creators coming in to use is to the value that I feel like we are worth right now lah. Yeah, it's simple. It doesn't.
Pod mic is one of the to go to for many
100%
independent
agree. 100% agree.
podcasters. Yeah.
Yeah, it's simple and straightforward.
Yeah.
You plug it in, and then you plug it into the Rodecaster Pro, and Rodecaster Pro has like a preset to identify that you're using a pod mic, so it will automatically process everything to the power of the pod mic.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah.
Are you using the Rodecaster Pro 2 or the first one? The first one? But that thing is, to me, is huge.
I feel like it's one of the
huge.
best thing ever for
Yes.
investment.
Yes.
I like the faders. I like the colors. I like the presets that you can use. I like the processing itself. If I could afford the second one, I would have gotten the second one.
Yeah,
as
if
well.
let's say because your case, your objective is in the studio, you're not mobilized.
Yep.
For me, I have to mobilize.
I disagree. You have the Rodecaster Pro. The Rodecaster Pro can be mobile as well. We use it on the
But
go
it's-
as well.
I'm
But
mobilized.
like
I'm
like
talking
a
about.
soy lah,
Yeah,
right?
it's like a
like
big
super
keyboard
big.
that I need to
Yeah.
find space to keep it.
I mean, okay lah. The difference here is because you are running this solo and I actually have a team, right? So my team will handle that most of the time. But we do use a Zoom H6 as well for our field recording.
Yeah.
Or if we have things that
Damn, here comes the sound.
here
man.
comes the sound. So early for renovation.
Yeah, because once 10 o'clock, then people start complaining.
Oh really?
Yeah.
What time does the shop around here open usually?
Around 10.
Around 10?
Around 10, yeah.
Condolences, man, to the audio. Right. Okay. But going back to the Rodecaster, for example, I find it's a very versatile baby, and for like 3,000 and below, it's one of the best investments.
Yeah,
I call the
I heard.
Rodecaster the heart of my studio. Yeah.
I heard a lot of good stuff about that. That is one of the iconic product in
Definitely.
terms of podcasting.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So right now we are in the mark of 1 hour and 10 minutes. Anything else you want to share?
Nothing much, man. It's a very weird position being in this chair because I'm always the producer behind the scenes.
Behind the camera.
And I will tell my host what to do, and I'll just explain to the guests, how do you, and it's weird being here. But I really enjoy the process. This is the second time, I would say, this year that I'm being
in the podcast? Yeah.
interviewed. I want to bring back podcast sessions. It's been on hiatus since the pandemic. And I kind of lost passion there being a host because, the
podcast sessions in the Spotify and
it's called
all the
Podcast Sessions Malaysia, or PSMOI, hosted by me, Kelvin. It's basically a podcast. How I used to describe it, it's a podcast about podcasters and their podcasting journey, right? It's the idea behind it is just to get the creators behind the scenes, just to understand. It's like, then it's what kind of equipment do you use? Why do you pick this? What was the research process like? How do you pick your guests? Then tell me about that, right? How do you craft the questions along the way? Okay, let's talk about post-production. How do you edit a podcast? How do you learn to first edit? And it's just that journey, just to peel back, show people behind the scenes of like the struggles and the pros and the cons of the creator have to go through to create like this perfect episode for the audience. Because it's a I don't want to call it a thankless job lah, but it's a unseen process of like, wow, you have this amazing guest, you have this amazing episode. But I don't know what actually went behind the scenes of like, how do you attain this guest?
Those are the podcast enthusiast listeners.
It was always developed for creators, for budding podcasters and content creators to understand the process of perhaps, a creator that they are a huge fan of, right? Let's pick an episode. Let's break down the episode, right? Tell me about the flaws of podcasting. Tell me about your favorite part of podcasting. Tell me about your favorite stories in podcast. So that has always been the idea, and I've been dying to bring it back. It's just that work has been hectic and haven't had the time. Yeah.
What is your advice for people who wants to start a podcast?
Just bloody do it, man. Just do it. The same advice I would give those people are the same advice I've given people, 4 or 5 years ago. If you want to start a podcast, plan everything out, write everything out. You don't have to plan long term. It's good that you do. But plan for 4 episodes. Only think of 4 episodes. How do you want to start your show with? What is your episode about? Let people get to know you and where you're going from here. 4 episodes. By 4 episodes, I'm talking about the 5 P's of podcasting. Really plan out the episode, right? Script everything out. Have point forms, okay? Learn how to host. Learn what kind of equipment to get, right? Learn how to edit a podcast. Learn where to publish your podcast, and learn how to promote. I'm talking about all the capsule contents and everything, right? Continue these steps 4 times for 4 episodes.
Then you kind of know already.
And at the end of you understand the flow? And at the end of the 4th episode, reflect again. Is this something I can do long term? Because if your answer is no, or you're like, 不知道, I don't know, it's probably not for you. Right? Because I've seen so many great podcasts faded away because they don't have time. Because the older you get, the more commitments you have.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that I've interviewed before, they are what we considered pod faded. They stop. They don't have a podcast anymore. Why? No, podcast is not paying me enough. I cannot support myself through podcasting. I don't have time lah. My 9 to 5 getting crazier and crazier. Don't have time to record. Don't have time to edit. Don't have time. Cannot find a topic lah. This and that. So really plan out. If you can do it for 4 episodes, you can do it long term. Yeah.
That's great, man. What a great sharing.
Thanks, man.
Dude, shall we wrap things up? Let's go for breakfast, man.
Let's go, man. I want mama food.
Thanks for listening.
Hey,
thanks for coming, Kelvin.
Thanks for having me.
Nice talking to you.
Likewise.
Hope I will bring you back again in the near future. Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.